Mathilde was a very pretty girl in a family of office and bank workers. She did not think she could get a good job, and she did not think she could find a rich husband. So she married Loisel, an office worker at the Ministry of Schools. She did not have any beautiful clothes because she did not have a lot of money. But Mathilde was unhappy because she wanted to be rich and have beautiful clothes. A woman could become important because they were rich, or they could be important because their family was important. But a woman could also become important if she was beautiful and clever. So Mathilde was unhappy because she was beautiful, but she did not have expensive clothes and things like the rich woman. Her house looked poor and had dirty walls, old chairs, and ugly curtains. Other women like her did not even think about these things. But they made Mathilde angry and sad. Every day, a little girl came to clean their house. When Mathilde saw her, she felt even more unhappy. She wanted a house with big living rooms, beautiful furniture, expensive foreign carpets, big warm fires, and many servants, and lots of rich and famous friends and visitors. She sat at the table for dinner and looked at the tablecloth. It was the same tablecloth they used yesterday and for 2 days before. Her husband looked at the soup and said, "Meat soup, it's the best meal in the world." But Mathilde thought about expensive food on beautiful plates with silver knives and forks. Mathilde did not have any beautiful clothes or jewelry, and she wanted them. "If I have beautiful clothes and jewelry, then men will look at me and want me," she thought. She had a rich friend from her school, but she didn't visit her anymore because she felt so unhappy when she came home afterwards. One evening, her husband Loisel came home and he looked very happy. He had a large envelope in his hand. "I have something for you," he said. She opened the envelope and looked at the card inside. She read the words on the card. "The Minister of Schools would like to ask you to come to a party on the evening of Monday, January the 18th. Loisel thought, "My wife is going to be so happy." But Mathilde became angry and threw the card on the table. "What can I do with this?" she said. "Aren't you happy?" asked Loisel. "You never leave the house and it is going to be a great party." It was very difficult to get it. Everybody wants to go and they did not ask many office workers like me. Lots of important people from the ministry will be there. Mathilde became very angry. "What am I going to wear?" she said. "Oh, I did not think of that," he said. "You wore a nice dress to the theater. You can wear that." Mathilde began to cry. Her husband stopped talking because he was so surprised. 2 large tears moved slowly from her eyes to her mouth. Mathilde went to her friend's house the next day and told her about the problem. Mrs. Forestier went to her wardrobe and took out a large box. She brought it to Mathilde and opened it. "Choose some jewelry, my friend," she said. Mathilde looked at the beautiful jewelry. She tried on the necklace and bracelet in front of a mirror. She liked them so much and did not want to take them off. She asked her friend, "Do you have anything else?" Her friend said, "Yes, but you need to choose. I don't know what you like." Suddenly, Mathilde saw a beautiful diamond necklace inside a black box. She wanted it so much. Her heart made fast, loud noises, and her hands moved from side to side. She put it around her neck and looked at herself in the mirror. "Can I borrow this necklace?" she asked. "Of course," said Mrs. Forestier. Mathilde was so happy. She put her arms around her friend and kissed her. Then she went home. It was the night of the party, and Mathilde was a big success. She was the most beautiful woman there and looked so happy. All the men looked at her, asked her name, and wanted to talk to her. All the important people from the ministry wanted to dance with her. Even the head of the ministry saw her. She did not stop dancing and was in a cloud of happiness. "Everyone is looking at me and thinking I am so beautiful," she thought to herself. She left the party at about 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband was asleep in a small room next to the party room, together with 3 other men. He put Mathilde's coat on her shoulders. The coat was not beautiful like her dress. Mathilde wanted to leave quickly before the other women saw the coat. Her husband said, "Don't hurry. It's really cold outside. You wait here while I get a taxi." But she did not listen to him and ran down the stairs. They could not find a taxi in the street. They shouted at taxi drivers, but nobody stopped. They sadly walked towards the river Seine. It was so cold. At last they found a taxi near the river. Probably only worked at night because it was so old and dirty. The taxi took them home, and they walked up the stairs to their flat. That was the end of the party for her, and Loisel needed to go to the office early the next day. Mathilde started to take off her beautiful dress and looked at herself in the mirror of their bedroom. Then she screamed, "Where was the diamond necklace?" "What's wrong?" asked Loisel. He was almost ready for bed. Turned to him. She looked very worried. "I cannot find Mrs. Forestier's necklace." Loisel stood up. He looked very upset. "What? How? That is not possible." They looked in her dress, her coat and pockets. They looked everywhere, but they could not find it. "Did you have it at the end of the party?" he asked her. "Yes," she said. "I touched it in the hall before we left." "I don't think you lost it in the street. We did not hear it fall on the ground. I think it's in the taxi," he said. "Yes," she said. "It's probably in the taxi. Do you remember the number of the taxi?" "No," he said. "I did not look at it." They looked at each other for a long time. Then Loisel put on his clothes again. "I am going to look in the streets to try and find it," he said. He left. Mathilde did not take off her party dress and did not go to bed all night. She sat in a chair with no fire. She could not think about anything. Her husband came back home at about 7 o'clock. He couldn't find the necklace. The next day he went to the police and to the taxi companies. He even put an advert in the newspapers and said he would give money if anyone had information about the necklace. Mathilde waited all day. She still could not think about anything because she was so worried. Loisel came home in the evening. His face looked white and empty. "You need to write to your friend," he said. "Tell her the necklace is broken and that you are mending it. That gives more time." She wrote the letter. After a week, they lost all hope. Loisel looked 5 years older. "We need to think about how to replace the necklace," she said. The next day, they looked inside the box and found the name of the jewelry shop inside it. They went to the shop, and the man there looked at a list of the jewelry that he sold in the past. "I did not sell the necklace," he said. "I probably only sold the box." They went to many different jewelry shops looking for a necklace like the other one. They were both sick with worry. In a shop at the Palace Royal, they found a diamond necklace exactly like Mrs. Forestier's one. It cost 40,000 francs, but the man in the shop said they could buy it for 36,000 francs. "Please do not sell it for 3 days, asked Loisel. They also made an agreement. If you find Mrs. Forestier's necklace before the end of February, then you can sell this new necklace back to me, 34,000 francs. Loisel's father gave him 18,000 francs when he died. So he needed to borrow 18,000 francs more. He borrowed 1,000 francs from one man, 500 from another man, 100 francs from here, and 60 francs from there. He borrowed from greedy men at very high interest rates. He did not even know if he could pay the money back during his life. Then Loisel went to the jewelry shop and gave the man their 36,000 francs. Mathilde took the necklace back to Mrs. Forestier. Her friend was not happy. "You took a long time to bring back the necklace," she said with a cold face. Mathilde was happy that Mrs. Forestier did not open the box. She may understand that the necklace is a new one and say, "I am a thief," thought Mathilde. After that day, Mathilde lived a life of a poor person. But she was brave. They needed to pay the money they had borrowed. She wanted to help pay it. She told her maid to go home and not come back. They left their flat and moved to a small room in the roof of a building. Now Mathilde needed to clean the kitchen, wash the dishes and pots herself. Her pink nails became dirty. She washed the dirty clothes and bed sheets and put them on a line to dry. She carried the rubbish down to the street every morning and carried up water. She was so tired she needed to rest on each floor. She dressed like a poor person. When she went to the grocers and butchers with a basket on her arm, she always asked for a cheaper price, so the rude shop owners were horrible to her. Every month they paid some of the money back. Her husband worked every evening doing an extra job. He often worked late at night for only a few pennies per page. After 10 years, they finished paying back all the money, including the interest. Mathilde looked old now. She was strong and her hands were hard and rough, like women from poor families. Her hair was messy, her hands were red, and there were holes in her skirts. She talked loudly when she cleaned the floors with lots of water. But sometimes, when her husband was in the office, she sat near the window and thought about the party 10 years ago. Everybody thought she was so beautiful then. "I lost the necklace and completely changed our lives," she thought. "Life is so strange. One small thing can make you very rich or very poor." One Sunday, Mathilde went for a walk on the big expensive street in the center of Paris. She needed to relax after a week of work. She saw a woman walking in the street with a child. It was Mrs. Forestier, and she was still young and beautiful. Mathilde had strong feelings in her body. "Should I speak to her?" she asked herself. "Yes, of course. We have paid all of the money now, so I can tell her everything. Why not?" She went to Mrs. Forestier. "Good morning, Jean," she said. Mrs. Forestier was surprised. "Why is this poor woman speaking to me and using my first name?" she thought. "I don't know you. I think you are making a mistake." "No, I am Mathilde," said Mathilde. Her friend gave a cry of surprise. "Oh, Mathilde, you are so different," she said. "Yes, my life was difficult after the last time I saw you," she said. "And it was all because of you." "Me? How can that be possible?" said Mrs. Forestier. "Do you remember the diamond necklace I borrowed from you to go to the party at the Ministry of Schools?" asked Mathilde. "Yes, why?" asked Mrs. Forestier. "Well, I lost it," said Mathilde. "You lost it?" "No, you gave it back to me." "I gave you one that looked the same," said Mathilde. "Took us 10 years to pay for it. It was not easy for us, and we had very little money. But slowly we paid all the money that we borrowed, and I am happy about that." Mrs. Forestier looked very surprised. "So you bought a new diamond necklace to give to me?" she asked. "Yes, did you notice? They looked almost the same," said Mathilde, and she smiled with happiness. Madame Forestier looked like she may cry. "My poor Mathilde," she said. "That necklace was not real diamond. It was a cheap copy. I bought it for no more than 500 francs.